Okay, in this video what we're going to do is look at how to start displaying questions in our quiz. So hopefully you should have a whole set of questions. I've only got 5 here, but you should have at least 20 questions. And in your program you should have this function called read file. Okay, so it should be exactly like this, and it returns this thing called data. Okay, now this read file, we don't need to run this at the minute. So at the bottom of the code, I've removed that line that said read file. So just make sure you've done that too. Now what I'm going to do is add an extra button to actually start my program. So at the bottom here under button D, I've got my window main loop, and I'm just going to make another button. So I'm going to say button start, and that is equal to being a button, open and close brackets, and then you've got your button start dot place like this. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is put it in the window as usual. Then you want to just look at the previous buttons. What do you want to do? Well, you want to put some text in it, and it can say start. I'm going to also put an image in it. Okay, so image is equal to, and I'm using the same image as before, so btn image. Make sure you're putting commas on the end of these. I forgot to do one there. Got that one, right? So you don't want to end up with any errors. And then you've got compounds. I need to do that so that the text will appear on top of the image. So center, like that. And then command we will do later. Okay, so I'll leave that for now. In the place, where do I want to place it? Well, I want to place it sort of, if I run my program, let's have a look. Okay, so I want it to be from here down to there. So I've got to figure out that. So then place, I'm going to do relative. I'm using relative for everything. Okay, so it's 0 point. Now, if I look at where button A was, that is 0.1. So that would be this top left. This would be this left side here. So that's 0.1. And then rel y, where is that? So the relative y height-wise is 0.6. 0.6. Right, so if I run this now just to see what it looks like. Okay, so there's this massive button then. Okay, so it's there on the left and the right, sorry, left hand side, and the height on the x and the y is fine, but the width and the height isn't. So I need to do rel width. I want to do so rel width. Now I've got to figure this out. So if all my other buttons are 0.35, so 0.35 was sort of up to here, then there was a space, then there was another 0.35. So I'm going to do, if 0.35 times 2 was 0.7, so I'm going to do 0.8. And then rel height, well, what was the height of these? These were 1. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to do 0.3. Oh, run that. Oh, invalid syntax, what have I got? Comma. Always forget these commas. Right, there we go. And there's my button. Right. Now I might want to put some text in here. So I'm going to put some text in that box. Now you've got to be aware what these are. So QNum is my black box up here. If you don't want it, you can get rid of it. You just have to select it all and delete. Okay, you can do that. If you don't want that black box, I'm going to keep it in here to put my question number in here. And question is this gray box. So at the minute, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put text equals press start to begin. Okay, so just lowercase that. Quotes on the other end, comma. Okay, so run this. There you go. Looks nice. And press start to begin, right? So this is the start button. Right, now what we want to do is get rid of this start button, okay? So we need, when you press the start button, it disappears, the first thing. Now, what we will also be doing is wanting to display a question at the same time. So we press start and a question appears. Now, to do that, you got to think about also when we press this next button. When we press this next button, it will also want to then display another question. So when we press the start, we want to remove this button so we can see the 4 buttons that we have behind them, and then display a question. But then when we press this next, we don't want to remove this again. So what I'm going to do is create another little procedure inside my GUI. So I'm going to say def hide start, open close brackets, and then in here I'm going to write btn start dot destroy, like that. And then in the command for this, I have to run hide start. So comma, and write commands equals hide start, just like that. I'm not going to put any brackets or anything, just the bracket on the end of this one. So this is like the whole thing, okay? It's a bit different from this. This one we were passing an argument, so we had to do this brackets, and you had to do this bit in front of it as well, because we wanted to pass this number up to button pressed to see which button was pressed or not. But here we're just running this. Now, I'm using .destroy because I've tested this and I'm using a MacBook, and on a Mac, this one works, and it should work on Windows as well. So I'll have a go at it. Okay, so when I press the button, it disappears, or it's destroyed as such. Now, a different alternative way to do this would be place underscore forget, like this. But this is not going to work on a Mac, and I don't know why it doesn't, but it just doesn't work as well. So look, what happens if I press this? It doesn't do anything. Well, it's almost done it. It's sort of, you see, it hasn't done it properly, right? And then when I click off the window, it does disappear. So the forget, it's glitchy, and that's just on a MacBook. So if you're doing this on Windows, you can use the dot forget, place underscore forget. You can use that if you want, that's fine. But as I say, it's glitchy on a Mac. So if you're on Windows, use this one if you want, but I'm going to use dot destroy because it just works better. And this is just something to do with the way one operating system works compared to the other. So that one works fine on a MacBook, and it probably works fine on Windows, to be honest, as well. Okay, so now what we want to do is display the first question. So what we want to do is create a procedure called display question, right? So up here, we've got this read file that we have. I'm going to then do another one, def display questions. So these are procedures that I'm creating, right? So I just created that one for hiding the start button, and this one is a procedure to display a question. So I'm going to say display question, display random question. It's going to be more specific with my comment. Random question, right? So that's what we're going to want to try and do here. Okay, so this display question, what we will want to do is get all of our data from reading this file. We need to read this file, so we'll do that here. We'll write data equals, and then you just write read file open and close brackets. Now, just to explain how that works, whenever you run display question, that will run read file, which is all of this, and read file returns data. So data will be equal to data. Essentially, it's a little bit weird, but what we're doing, we're passing this information into this procedure. Okay, so this is a function that returns something. So whenever you run this function, it returns some information and we'll store it in here. And we can test that, of course, by just printing it. So if we print data, we will see if that works within here. But now we need to run display question. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it down in this little procedure that not only destroys but also runs display question. So I'll just put a comment, of course, for this as well. Hides start button and runs first question. Although it doesn't do that at the minute. Now, as you can see, this is a procedure inside my GUI, because all of this is part of GUI. All right, so this is a bit unfamiliar to you, but don't worry about it. Just make sure you do the code exactly the same as me, and then it should work fine. So I'm going to run this now, and up it comes, start button. I might want to jazz up this button, make it a bit bigger or something later on. And when I press start, all right, okay, so it's got rid of that. And you can see my data as well. Let's come in here. Now, to look at the data, we need to just remember what we did from the last video, that my first question is all of this information, right? Everything from this square bracket to that square bracket. My second question is all of this one. Okay, so what we want to do is look at this first list. This is called a list, right? So this first list has got an index of 0, and then this number 1 is index 0, and this is index 1. So what I want to do is display index 1 from any question in this box here, which is my question box. So let's do that then. So up here, I have display question, right? I've got that print data. I'm going to get rid of that. And I need to get these, this question, right? So I've got question, copy that. Now I want to do something, you're going to see there's going to be a mistake. It's going to come up with a problem with this. So I'm going to do question, and I'm going to do exactly the same as I did here, but instead of changing the foreground color, we're going to change the text in it. So question.config, open the brackets, and I'm going to say text. Text is equal to, I'm just going to write test for the moment and run that. So if I press the start button, okay, so what's happened? It didn't do it, and it says questions not defined, right? And this is the same problem that you would have had previously before with trying to use these within button pressed, because the question is a local variable. Right, so this is a local variable, okay? Haven't really talked to you an awful lot about these, but I'm going to take qnum and question then and add them to be globals. So qnum, comma, and question. So now I can use these anywhere within my program, okay? So that's just going to be an easy way to get around any problems with this. So if I run this again, okay, so now it says test. Brilliant. It says test there when I press the start button. So this now works. Now what I want to do is get actually the data. So I want to get specific data. So what I want to do first of all is look at how you do that. So what you can do is, if I do print, for example, and say data square brackets 0, what do you think that's going to get me? Well, that's going to get me the first question, but all of the first question. So if I press start, there it is, right? So it's come up here, printed that first question, but I don't want all of the question. I just want this bit of information. So to do that, I would say it's data 0, which is the first question, and then I would do 1 to get the second item, right? Because remember, this is index 0, this is 1, this is 2, and so on. So that would be 1, right? So if I run that again, press start, and then you can see the operating system is data. The operating system is A. So I want to get that and put it into here instead. So let's look at what happens when I do that. I'm going to put data, square bracket 0, square bracket 1, and leave it like that. So run that. The operating system is A. Brilliant. Okay, so it's come up there. Right, so now I need to then think about obviously getting that information into here. as well, the rest of the information. Now I also got QNUM, so what I'm going to do is put QNUM just above that. So I'm going to get rid of this information. I don't need it now. I was just using that for test. And I have QNUM. Make sure I spell it correctly. If you're not sure, go down, see your global variables. QNUM question. And here, there it is there, right? So QNUM, now what I want to do in QNUM is not to just display the number here. I want to also say question. So I'm going to say config and text, just like the one below, right, equals. And then I'm going to say here question, and then do that, close that. Right, now I wanted that every time this would come up with a different number. Now we have to think of that at some other time, but what we can do at the minute is use possibly the number that's already come up at the minute. Now, the way to do this would be just create a global variable would be the best way and have it set to 0, and then increment it every time display number has increment it every time display number has been run. So every time this gets run, I would want to increment it. So I'm going to do a global up here. I'm just going to leave a couple of spaces and just write global variables or variable, and I'm going to say question or Q count. So that's going to be the question count is equal to 0. And then in here, I'm going to write Q count plus equals 1. I also need to bring it in as a global so that I can change it. So I need to do that as well. So I need to write here global Q counts. I already pasted it, yeah, Q count. So plus equals 1, and then in my question, what I want to do is actually put Q count into here, but I can't do it just like this. So what I could possibly do is I could say maybe, could I do it within brackets like that and do Q count like that. Let's have a look, see does that work. Nope, doesn't work. QNUM is not defined, it says. We got a few problems with it. Okay, so QNUM, QNUM. Well, that's my problem. I did GNUM instead of QNUM. So let's try it one more time, see if it does it. Right, okay, so it says question, and it does come up saying question 1, and then if I ran it again, it would probably say question 2. But this next button doesn't do that yet. That's one other thing we can try, is just press this next button. So the next button has to run display question. So if we do that, I've just copied the name of it, display question. Go down to my next button, wherever it is. Down, 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 here we go. Next button, and I have to do comma, command equals, and then paste that in, take out the brackets, display question, because we're displaying the question the very first time, but we also display the question up here too. So run it again, press start, press next. Right, so that is now incrementing. It's gone up every time we press it, getting a new number, but this of course isn't changing at the minute, which is fine, but there you have it. Okay, so that works. But you can see we had some funny brackets around that, those curly brackets around this. So what I'm going to do is take out these brackets, and instead I'm going to put in here curly brackets 0, and then dot format, open brackets, and then write Q counts like that, and then close the brackets. So to explain what this does, it puts Q count inside of this string. So this is a string that says question, and then this 0 means the first one out of a list of things, or a tuple it would be in this case. So I've only got one item that I want to put in a string, so that's Q count goes into here. So let's see, does that look a little bit better? Start, yes it does. We don't have the curly brackets around it anymore. Press that, and fine. Okay, the other thing that you may also notice is that we have the next button. This would be a problem in your program, that if you press that, it's coming straight up and the start button's still there. So we don't want the next button to be there yet. So that's a quick fix. We go down to where the next button is, and we've got this next button dot place. So that puts it on the screen. So we can leave the top bit that's created it. That's fine. But what we want to do is just place it when we press the start button. So when are we pressing the start button? Well, that's down here. So I'm going to take that code, Control X, cut it out. So I'll just take out these spaces. Control X gets rid of it. I'm going to go down to where my hide start is, and say display question, and do this. Now, I need to unindent this, sort this indentation out. So take that out. There. This one too. And this one too. Right, so next button. Let's see if that works. So the next button will now not appear at the very beginning. Press start, and it appears. Brilliant. And it works like that. Okay, so that's the first part of that video. It's probably long enough as it is. What we will do next is look at actually changing the question. But of course, we want the possible answers to come up in here as well. So we will do that. And then we will look at what happens when you press the next button. It changes the question. But also we would need to think about changing the score as well.